Luthen shop. Why does this guy have outlawed Jedi artifacts on sale to the general public? You know,
because when they put it on the set, they didn't realize it was
because that's right. And I think if Tony Gilroy caught that, he would say, "Get that garbage out of here." I really think he would.
I don't watch Star Wars.
Now,
I don't really know anything about it.
The arguments to me would be, well, Jimmy Mack, there are a lot of World War II collectors out there who collect Nazi artifacts. But
they
do
don't
they do it out in?
They don't have the Ark of the Covenant in the thing.
Do they do it out in the open? Yeah, those stones. Those stones.
And the Shankra stones.
Well, that's something. Okay, I can live with that. Because that's outside of the franchise, you know.
The Shankra Stone.
Yeah. It's like, there's some connection between the Indiana Jones universe and the Star Wars.
That's like Club Obi-Wan.
That's kind of neat.
That's Club Obi-Wan.
Or seeing the hieroglyphics of R2 and 3PO in the tomb in the Well of the Souls. That stuff, I like that stuff. That's fun little stuff. But when you're talking about putting Jedi artifacts on sale in a gallery on Coruscant that's open to the public, I think that would attract a lot of attention from the Empire.
Listen, there's three of us about to do an Star Wars RPG. So we're pretty much going to respond to whatever props are placed in the background. And if you start placing, Jedi and Sith artifacts, we're going to notice. Yeah. So there is something to be said about know what props you're putting on set.
And also even if it is okay to collect that stuff in the Empire era of Star Wars.
Not if you're trying to keep a low profile.
If you're like, if you're like Luthen and you're trying to keep the heat off of you, the last thing you're going to be
this
doing.
lightsaber will fetch a pretty penny.
The last thing is going to have Sith and Jedi holocrons on a shelf. That's the last thing in the world.
Maybe they were repros. Maybe they were repros. We don't know.
Allegedly, in the same universe, Vader is hunting those down.
Yeah,
I know. He's like, where are they?
Right.
I will find them.
And listen, I don't think this is being nitpicky. I think this is a fair conversation to have because Star Wars is this live action Star Wars. This is a visual medium, and the story gets told via the actions of the characters, the dialogue that comes out of their mouths. And the visual things on screen that we see, that's part of the storytelling.
100%.
And so just to throw shit in there and be like, it doesn't matter. We're just doing it for laughs.
We just need something in the background. No, 100%.
That's
you do stuff like that. You're saying something.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying something to most of your audience, which is going to be in the know.
Mm-hmm. So I just think it's important for Tony. Maybe somebody should tell him that because I think he should. He doesn't have the type of control over the situation that he thinks he has, and that's because he's ignorant about Star Wars. And so things, there's cracks in the armor. And So, I'd like to have a sit down with Tony and tell him about this. I think I'm the guy to do it too.
So say you have your interview, which I would love to hear.
Yeah.
And you present the stuff, which is all valid stuff. Basically, it's saying, did you know that, what you've populated Luthen's shop with, which is his cover with red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
What do you think he would say to that?
He would try to rationalize why it doesn't matter. And then I would respond by telling him it matters a great deal because you have people in your audience who are highly educated on this kind of thing. And this is a visual storytelling medium. So you have to take accountability for anything that's being presented on screen, even if it's in the background.
Yeah,
you really do, especially.
So you think he'd kind of stake his position on it, and
he'd be like, "Oh, well, that's the prop department, and it doesn't matter."
They're reproductions.
I'd be like, "No, you got to get control. You got to get control of that." Okay, if he gave me an in-universe, saying that they were fake and that they were replicas, I would say that's fine. That I can accept that. But why would Luthen have that stuff on display?
That's the other thing.
If he's
you
trying
want to have to explain to the Imperials when they knock on your door that they're repros.
Yeah, you got this guy. He's living a double life. You don't want to be introducing any elements.
You want to be selling cigarettes and gum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's running a bodega.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Luthen's bodega.
Yeah, you want an Optimo shop. I don't know if you guys have that out there, but we have an Optimo shop. you
Yeah.
know. It's like cheap cigars and like magazines.
I thought the idea that you came up with, or that was that got brought up about reproductions, in-universe reproductions, I think that was pretty fascinating. But I also think that you're dead right, where you got Gilroy, who kind of parades around the fact that he's not buried in the lore, he's not buried in the mythology, and that's what is really helpful with him kind of focusing the story. But at the same time, he's surrounding himself with lore. Mm-hmm. He's surrounding himself on set with the lore. So
he's surrounding himself on the set with visual cues to the Star Wars lore, which can be interpreted in many different ways, thus hijacking his entire story right out from under his feet, and he has no idea.
Right.
No idea what's going on. So he needs to quit patting himself on the back so much and grab himself a flippin' Star Wars encyclopedia and sit down for the weekend. But okay, here I just wanted to respond to that actual clip, though. Our conversation. I received an email from Alexander from Honolulu, who, in response to that tangent on the first episode of RFRPG about Luthen's shop, that conversation reminded Alexander of a potential connection or inspiration for Luthen himself and how his shop works. So Alexander is pointing us in the direction of the book called The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick, who wrote Blade Runner and Total Recall and other things. At least Total Recall was based on a story he wrote. Same with Blade Runner.
Great show, by the way. It was adapted into a fabulous show on Amazon Prime. Loved it. Watched them all.
That's what we're. Yeah, you did.
I
Good.
did.
And perfect, because maybe you can comment on this, because I only scrubbed through the first episode because I thought that the subject matter was so compelling. I had to give it a look for myself. Amazon Prime series about an alternate history where the Axis forces win World War II. So that means the Germans and the Japanese win World War II, and the Nazis overthrow the USA, and it gets split in half. Our country, United States of America, gets split in half between the Japanese and the Nazis. And in the series, there's a character who lives in occupied San Francisco, and his name is Robert Childan. Do you know his Childan? Robert Childan?
Yeah,
Childan. Mm-hmm. And he owns an antique store that deals in Americana, like cowboy stuff, guns, and clothing.
Right.
Now, these items are illegal for the occupied American citizens to own, but this guy, Childan, is allowed to sell this old antique stuff to occupying Japanese citizens. Apparently, that's a thing with the Imperial Japanese, and they I don't know.
They're real into it. Yeah, the way the series, and I didn't read the book, obviously, I don't read, but the way that the series worked was, that the Japanese were very interested in Americana. So all of those sort of, especially the Wild West, things like that. So it was
cowboy boots, blue jeans,
right?
10-gallon hats, guns, maybe,
right?
And so his shop is allowed to operate, but is closely watched for who buys what. So the shop itself may be providing information to those who are oppressing the American citizens, the Japanese or the Nazis. And the kicker is Childan is also secretly working for the resistance movement and passes information back and forth, becoming more directly as the series goes on. So he is kind of like a Luthen-like character.
He's a great character. One of the best performances in the series. Really compelling because he's so resistant to it. But he gets drawn, further and further in. I can't say enough about the show. It was It's definitely binge worthy. It's really, really great. I've talked to friends who have read the book, and they say the book's even better than the show. But it's great. And it's got Jimmy James from News Radio, Stephen Root, who's a great actor. He actually plays the man in the high castle. But the antique dealer is a great character, and really good observation that it kind of dovetails a little bit into Luthen being a antique dealer, and that's the front for his effort.
Yes. Oh, Stephen Root was in the Book of Boba Fett too.
Oh my God, that's right. Another Star Wars.
You mentioned Stephen. So in conclusion, Alexander from Hawaii says, it may be that Luthen's shop is also being closely monitored, and he's essentially allowed to trade in illegal Jedi or Sith artifacts as a trap for the ISB to identify Force sensitives or rebellion members. So they're monitoring the situation, and so maybe Luthen understands this, and that's why. I mean, all of
I love this idea that he is hiding in plain sight.
Yeah,
if he really does have, if he's doing it by the book, and he has the authorization to sell and deal in these artifacts of a history that the Empire wants to banish, but they also know that creates scarcity, rarity, and profit. So it would make sense to me that they would be kind of playing both sides of this in dealing in these antiquities, which is exactly what you see. So you've got the occupying forces of the Japanese on the one hand. They've dominated America, they're controlling this part of America, but they also are in love with what made it America, the West and all of that. So this is a really cool, I think, connection. And if you're looking for a show to stream, it's several years old now, but I think it holds up great. Man in the High Castle, really well done. Loved it. Very cool.